Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we can't keep calm because A24 released the official trailer for their new horror flick, Backrooms, starring Oscar nominees Chiwetel Ejiofor and Reinsve, among others. Needless to say, the trailer is super creepy and honestly kinda suffocating, especially by the time you get to the end, where the walls seemingly close in on a running Renate. But of course, I watched it an unhealthy number of times. Who am I kidding? And here's a list of 12 hidden details I picked up from it. Let's go.
I found a place.
Backrooms' trailer is tied to an internet phenomenon. I'm guessing most of you already know where I'm going with this, but this is for my newbies, who have no idea that what the trailer is actually based on and might find it as vague footage that makes no sense. Now, when you play the trailer, it became evident that the creators are going to play with the idea of liminal spaces and sterile living, invariably forcing you to think, wait, is that Severance in a horror world? That's the catch. The genre Ken Parsons is going for is not something novel. In fact, it has its roots in 4chan of all places. Yeah, back in 2019, a 4chan thread introduced what we now call the Backrooms, a fictional location that's often described as an impossibly large, extra-dimensional maze of empty rooms accessed by no clipping out of reality. It became one of the best-known examples of the liminal space aesthetic. Over time, internet users have expanded the idea by adding levels, which are interconnected layers of the Backrooms, where hostile creatures inhabit. What makes it even crazier is that the original image posted on 4chan was actually a Hobbytown store under construction. In early 2022, American YouTuber Ken Parsons dropped the very first installment of his Backrooms short films on YouTube, and those viral videos played a huge role in pushing the concept into the mainstream, because I remember going down that rabbit hole and finding countless other folks like me. Gravedigger47, if you're watching this, it's finally happening, dude!
Saying I don't believe you.
Okay, I'm gonna come back here with proof.
The Backrooms trailer shows reality glitching. I guess all of us can now make better sense of the trailer that hit us with this huge empty room, with almost nothing except for some random piled up furniture and a TV, which, funnily enough, looks just like the ones they showed for sale at the very start of the trailer. But here's where it gets trippy. If you remember that earlier teaser, it's basically the same thing. A big empty room, but now with a chair, some windows, a bookshelf, and a few other little items scattered around. And then the camera starts sinking beneath the floor, showing what looks like the same room, but also not the same room. Maybe it's a different time, maybe it's a glitch, who knows? The cycle keeps going, each iteration getting more abstract, until that chair literally fuses with the floor. And then the voiceover drops this line about it creating the rooms. Or maybe remembering them? And I don't know about you, but a space that remembers itself is 100% more terrifying than a haunted house, because it's like reality is glitching right in front of your eyes. The Cap and Clark's connection. In the trailer, the store named Cap and Clark's Ottoman Empire straight up looks like it's dying. Most likely it's owned by Ejiofor, whose first name also happens to be Clark, and explains his snooping around. You've got banners saying entire store on sale and unbelievable prices. It gives off that very specific vibe of a furniture place that's clearly on its last legs and about to shut down for good. Oh, not proud of that pun. Whoops. Now, this isn't just a random set design. It actually lines up almost perfectly with what happened in real life with Roner's Home Furnishings. The store operated for much of the 20th century in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and the building was later renovated for a Hobbytown store in the early 2000s. You get the drift, right? The movie seems to have intentionally taken us back to the closing of the furniture store to establish the original Backrooms image, the one that started this entire nightmare and was taken during those remodelings, inside that empty, stripped-out shell of what used to be a furniture showroom. The distorted foreign voice ties it to a core feature of the complex. Okay, one tiny detail in the A24 trailer that you probably missed is a loudspeaker that crackles to life for just a second, broadcasting what sounds like an announcement in some foreign language, distorted and sourceless. At first, you might just brush it off as background noise. Honestly, I did the first time. But if you know Ken Parsons' Backrooms lore, this is a classic. See, the layout of the Backrooms changes from area to area, but every corner still looks a lot like something you could find in the real world. The complex makes incomprehensible sounds and hints at a communication system that isn't for us to understand. Hearing that loudspeaker in the trailer is so damn interesting, because it implies a system someone built and implies that someone needed to hear these messages. That's the Backrooms doing its thing, taking something familiar and slowly hollowing it out until it feels wrong. Think of kitchens with counters but no food. It's like the form is there but the purpose is gone. So that loudspeaker in the empty furniture store is just another Tuesday in the Backrooms. Stop, but from which side? Watch the trailer once again and zoom in on the stop sign. No, it's not just a warning because it doesn't read normally. The letters look reflective, like you're seeing them through some hidden mirror. And if you think about it, the Backrooms are far beyond the idea of just another dimension. It's what exists behind reality. That mirrored stop is a visual hint that you may have crossed a line where the world no longer works according to the laws of physics. The sign is definitely real, but it suggests that you're no longer in the place you were meant to be. And most importantly, you weren't supposed to read it from where you are. The shadowy figure in the trailer. The movie is surely leaning heavily into the idea of interdimensional creatures, because there's no way the shadowy figure standing at the end of that corridor is a real person. And thanks to Parsons' earlier shorts, we could assume that what we caught a glimpse of was still life. Look closely at the silhouette. It's too defined and recognizably human shaped. Still life is known for being deeply hostile and predatory. And in the individuals in hazmat suits who are all probably researchers from the ANSIC Research Institute. Or they could even be the same trio we see filming the in-universe footage, including Ejiofor's character. We see them struggling with blue equipment, and the implication is clear. Whatever's in that corridor with them, it is not going to let them leave quietly. While we're on that note, the footage of Ejiofor on a grainy monitor also shows a feeble image of a white figure, and some fans have already started comparing it to community-created monsters like the Skin Stealer. That means Kane is definitely going for multiple creatures in this movie, and is creating something which isn't just some basic internet meme slapped onto a screen. The Christmas tree and statue people. Alright, this one is wild. You notice the fairy lights covered Christmas tree around a dark corner and some people statue merged onto the floor? Well, based on the games and the lore floating all around, the Christmas tree keeps showing up in dark rooms or tunnels, usually as part of some surreal Christmas events or rituals. In the 2025 games, Inside the Backrooms and Backrooms Escape Together, the Christmas event, players had to collect gifts scattered across multiple levels and bring them to a Christmas tree, which already gives you that creepy, why am I even doing this vibe. Now, if you dig deeper into the Backrooms wiki, there's an actual entity called the Killer Christmas Tree, documented on the wiki.backrooms wiki. It looks like a perfectly normal decorated tree, but it's basically an apex predator hiding behind tinsel. Sure, this is more community-written lore than Kane Pixel's canon, but yeah, it exists, and it's exactly as unsettling as it sounds. And the statue people? We've already seen them in later Kane Pixels videos, and one of them in the trailer even appears to be scared of the tree, which brings me back to Killer Christmas. The year is 1990. Once again, if we go back to the footage on the monitor, the date is clear. It's June 1990, but here's the real reason why Parsons went to the 90s. The original Kane Pixels YouTube series that kicked off in 2022 was mostly set in the late 80s and early 90s. Async first actually cracked into the Backrooms on October 17th, 1989, and most of the big investigative stuff, the missing persons cases and informational video, all of that happened within a few months, and that's in February and March of 1990. Even the 1991 found footage video that started everything is placed within that same time frame, and that's exactly why the 90s timeline matters. Parsons has also said the Backrooms are basically a warped memory of the late 90s and early 2000s, when the flash was always on and the VHS aesthetic fit right in. Yellow walls and fluorescent lighting are what defines the Backrooms. The ship's wheels on the walls. I'm sure sharp-eyed viewers have noticed the ship's steering wheels on the walls. At first glance, it looks random, but it's actually doing double duty. You might think that since Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire is a furniture store, it sells nautical decor. You know, the kind of thing you'd expect in a coastal-themed furniture store. But here's the twist. In the Backrooms legend, the helm is not for show. Oh, no. The wider community has documented ship-themed levels, like level 17, which is basically the interior of a huge ship that somehow drifts through the endless ocean of the Backrooms. The steering wheels are thus a subtle hint that the backrooms may be close enough to absorb nautical spaces, and what Clark might be doing is actually living through various strata in the hierarchy of the backrooms. Renate Reinsve can also access the backrooms. Renate is playing a therapist to Clark in the movie, and through her client, she learnt about the backrooms. At first, she thought Clark was going through some psychological issue, to which the latter replied that he would come back with proof. In that short sequence, we get a peek of her chamber. Now, towards the end of the trailer, she's seen standing in a room, which might be the very chamber we saw in the beginning, or some other room in her home with the layouts of the backrooms chalked out on a whiteboard. Yeah, the layout Clark gave her. Or maybe they developed a personal rapport and she followed him to his basement from where she accessed the backrooms. The point is, Parsons will be bringing the idea of null zones. According to fans, null zones are basically areas of the backrooms that overlap and connect to the real world, and anyone or anything falling through the ground into the backrooms does so via these zones. The low proximity magnetic distortion system, aka the threshold, is connected to the backrooms through a null zone too. And in all possibility, this is how Renate entered the backrooms. The bag, the clothes, and the mold. Two separate moments in the trailer have sent the backrooms community into a frenzy. And trust me, when you see what they're pointing at, it's impossible to unsee it. First, the protagonist reaches down into what looks like a bag. We know that in the Kane Pixels universe, abandoned belongings are never just abandoned belongings. They're evidence of previous wanderers, people who no-clipped into the complex and never made it out. The theory floating around is that the bag belonged to Ravi, the character from Found Footage 3, whose fate was left unresolved at the end of that episode. The second moment is arguably more disturbing. A shot of what appears to be a darker, more decayed section of the backrooms shows a large pile of clothes and dirt. Fans have pointed out that the level of visible mold and filth here is way higher than anything seen in the early web series episodes, though mold did start showing up in later videos, tying back to the black fungal substance associated with the life form. Theories about the clothes are threefold. 1. The backrooms itself generated. 2. Someone collected them from people who died in the complex. And 3. An entity stripped them from its victims. That last theory can be supported by Found Footage 3, where clothes were found near holes in the wall close to the replicated house. Blood on Renate's clothes and face. The last bit in the trailer is really hard, to be honest. Renate Reinsve pressed against a yellow wall, terrified and drenched in what looks like blood. Fans are freaking out, and I don't blame them. First, the claustrophobic corridor is true to the backroom style, but the blood? That's the real deal. In the Pixels web series, we rarely see characters drenched in blood. Seeing someone literally covered in it has set up so many questions. Whose blood is it? How the hell did it happen? And here's the most intriguing part. Since Found Footage 1, the series never actually shows what the entities like the lifeform and still life do to humans when they catch them. We see the grab and the aftermath, but never the act itself. So, this shot is making us wonder whether the movie will finally be showing what these creatures actually do to their victims. Because if that's even minutely true, be ready to bite your nails off.
Hello?
Alright guys, that's all for today. 12 hidden details from the Backrooms trailer. And honestly, my brain is still trying to process half of it. But one thing is evident, Parsons is building something way bigger than any regular horror flick. If you caught any details I missed, drop them in the comments because I need to know I'm not losing my mind alone here, and the wait until May 29th seems torturous. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so we can keep diving into this creepy world together. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!